Welcome back. Something unusual is happening on Capitol Hill right now. Special Counsel Robert Mueller is scheduled to testify publicly next week in back-to-back hearings before the Judiciary and Intel committees. But two sources tell NBC News that the hearings may be delayed at least a week until July 24th. But nothing has been finalized at this point. And as you just heard, House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler was tight-lipped this afternoon when he was asked about it. So frankly, it's a bit of a mystery. With me now is Congressman Jamie Raskin, Democrat from Maryland, a member of the House Judiciary Committee. So maybe he can help us a little bit with insight here. And he's a double threat. He's a member of the House Oversight Committee, too. Judiciary Oversight. Pretty much that's a busy plate for you. Congressman Raskin, good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Great to be with you.
Let me just start with this. I know you're not involved in the negotiations with Mueller right now, per se. This is the chairman. But can you give us some insight? Is this about negotiating more time? Why would this be delayed a week, if it is?
Well, as you say, I'm really not involved in the inner negotiations that have been taking place over the course of this afternoon, I think, and I've been in the oversight hearings about the treatment of kids at the border. So what I understand is that basically they're just negotiating the details of the special counsel's appearance, and I'm hoping that they will come to closure on it sometime today or tomorrow.
How do you, I mean, I would imagine, first of all, are you going to be one of the, because not everybody's going to get to question Mueller. Is that still the case?
But again, I don't know what's taking place. If there's more time, we'll be able to exercise the normal 5-minute rule. I think that I may have been just on the wrong side of the cutoff on the original plan, but I just don't know.
They do it by seniority, or how did that work? Was that a seniority thing?
Yeah, everything is by seniority here, of course. But look, the main thing is that we want to hear from the special counsel, and we want him to say in his own voice, in his own words, exactly what the findings of the report were, because he found tremendous evidence of obstruction of justice that has been misstated and misrepresented by the president and by the attorney general. And there was lots of evidence of collusive activity between the Trump campaign and various Russian nationals and emissaries of Vladimir Putin.
How do you conduct this in 2 hours? I mean, or even 3. I mean, what you want to lay out there doesn't feel like will get done very well in halting 5-minute segments that are sort of back and forth by party.
Yeah, I mean, look, the best we can hope for is to pierce through the fog of propaganda that was left by the Attorney General with the ludicrous mantra of no obstruction, no collusion. There is tremendous evidence of presidential obstruction of justice, at least 10 different episodes where the president tried directly to interfere in the special counsel's investigation. So we know that's wrong. And then no collusion. Of course, the special counsel starts off the report by saying, I don't look at the question of collusion, which is not a criminal law concept, it's an antitrust law concept, and it's up to every American to determine whether they think all of these contacts were appropriate or not. He did not find that there was sufficient evidence to prosecute for criminal conspiracy, and that didn't surprise me for a moment, because I never thought Putin and the GRU needed Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr. to execute their assault on American democracy.
You are somebody that supports opening an impeachment inquiry now, but it is not a majority of the conference, per se, and obviously the speaker is not yet there. If she doesn't get there after Mueller testifies, does this mean impeachment's off the table?
Well, I think a majority of the Judiciary Committee, a majority of most of the people who serve on the investigative committees have come to the conclusion that, based on the Mueller report and other information we have, that we should launch an inquiry into impeachment, not file articles and vote on articles of impeachment, but to launch an investigation. And look, I think that when Mueller speaks, a lot more Americans are going to be educated about what the contents of the report really are. And then we'll begin to have the discussion, which was really derailed by the Attorney General when he delayed the release of the report by 3.5 weeks and then misstated the contents of the report repeatedly, prompting the special counsel to write 2 letters of protest complaining that the Attorney General was confusing the American people.
I want to move to the hearing that you were discussing that you were involved with today, and that is having to do with the conditions at these detention centers with migrants. I guess if there's good news, it's that there's now bipartisan acceptance that these conditions are terrible.
Yes.
But that's about all we're at now. I guess that is a step forward. Obviously, I think House Democrats, you don't have a lot of trust in this administration if you hand them money to try to deal with this, because obviously you don't like how we got to this crisis. Everybody believes we're in a crisis, but one side believes the other side manufactured it. The other one believes that they don't take it seriously. How do we resolve this when there's so little trust, I think, really, between particularly congressional Democrats and the administration?
Look, this is a humanitarian crisis and catastrophe taking place at the border, and we really don't have time for political finger pointing. I mean, we can replay all of that.
Wasn't today's hearing a bit of that?
A bit of it, but it was interesting because it went long enough. It went for 5 or 6 hours that we really got through the partisan polemics, and we got to look at the reality of what's taking place down at the border, where you have hungry kids, you have sick kids, you have scabies and lice and chicken pox out of control. There are 6 kids who died in detention. In the prior decade before that started, no kids had died in detention. We heard from a woman this week whose name is Yasmin Juarez, who lost her daughter. She said after complaining for weeks about her daughter's respiratory infection, she could not get the proper medical attention. And when she finally got out of the facility, it was too late. She made it to an emergency room, but her daughter died shortly thereafter. We're hearing really tragic stories about what's taking place with the overcrowding, with the sickness, with the filth, with the stench. There are lawyers who came to say that they couldn't even get near the kids they were talking to because the smell was so overpowering that now basically contaminates entire facilities and entire rooms of overcrowded people packed in there. So we got to view this crisis as something that calls upon the conscience of our nation. You know, these people are refugees. They're coming from situations of terrible violence. In some cases, it's political violence. In some cases, it's domestic violence. It's gang violence in a lot of these societies. And they're coming up here and they're looking for help. And America is big enough, we're wealthy enough to treat these people decently and to make sure that the kids have a safe and civil environment.
You used a key word there. This is a refugee crisis, and every community, communities become a lot more welcoming when they hear the words refugees, and I think that is probably something we ought to be thinking about on this one.
And we should not treat refugees as criminals. So thank you.
No, and we normally don't, and that's why I think properly identifying them as refugees might sort of change the tone and tenor of some of this conversation. So, Congressman.